So I am currently heading up to one of our local pizza shops here in Bellefontaine, Ohio, our hometown, where I'm going to be sitting down for a 20-minute segment of Chalk Talk. Chalk Talk is hosted by our local radio station. They host sports teams and things like that throughout the year, and they have asked me to come on and share my experience about my FKT that I recently did on the Sheltowee Trace. So come along and join me for the fun. Here we are at Ron's Pizza in Bellefontaine, Ohio. They host the Chalk Talk. Let's go in here and get things ready. This will be perfect. Another good angle right here.
So if I talk, should I just look at that camera?
I'll tell you what we got. How long is that? 15-second open one.
Okay, we're gonna get you.
Time for Chalk Talk. Here's your host, Tyler Avila.
At peakofohiotv.com, we're broadcasting here from Ron's Pizza on South Main Bellefontaine. You can dine in or pick up for carry out or delivery. The number is 937-292-7775 here at Ron's. We got a great lineup here for you tonight for Chalk Talk. First off, we'll talk to Jason Wish. He is a Bellefontaine native. And Jason, good evening. Thanks for coming out to Chalk Talk.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy talking about my FKT experiences.
Yes, so you are a hiker and FKT, the fastest known time. Before we get to talking about this recent hike that you did, I want to talk to you about just your life, growing up, where you grew up, and how you came to be where you are now.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Bellefontaine. Went to Calvary Christian in elementary, and then Bellefontaine High School. I was born and raised on our family farm, which we still operate, and that is actually what I do. I farm for a living. I started a produce farm about 22 years ago, approximately. I'm married to my wife, Kristen, for 23 years, and we have 3 children, 20, 18, and 16.
Okay.
And I guess how I got started into backpacking, I've always enjoyed the outdoors. You know, I grew up playing out in the woods and hunting and fishing and camping and riding dirt bikes, building forts, all that fun stuff. And, you know, I kind of, we would camp out often, and I never really went backpacking, but when I was it's probably been 6 years now, I've gotten my farming business kind of where I wanted it. You know, it takes a lot to build a business from the ground up.
Right.
And we started from scratch. And I kind of was looking for some different challenges other than farming. So my wife suggested, you know what, why don't you go out and try a backpacking trip? My dad used to do that. So I thought, hey, that sounds pretty fun. So I gathered up some gear and purchased a few things I didn't have and went out and did a 20-mile circumnavigation of a state park lake. Spent about 3 days out there, and I was hooked. I really enjoyed that, and it kind of just grew from there. I started a YouTube channel about that same time and started filming myself on some of these Ohio backpacking loops and trails, and I kind of built some friendships through that from other YouTube backpackers, and we started hanging out together and doing some hikes together. And I always noticed that when I was hiking with them, I would find myself often pulling away from them. Or maybe they would sometimes suggest, man, you're a fast hiker. And, you know, I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. And then someone mentioned FKTs to me, which maybe I should elaborate on that a little bit for our listeners. They probably don't know what FKTs are. It's just shorthand or an acronym for fastest known time. And it's basically just a speed record on a trail. It can be a loop around a lake, around a mountain, you know, like a circuit hike, or it could be an end-to-end hike.
Right.
And it's usually, they're usually many distances, but they're always over 4 or 5 miles. That's the shortest they can be, and it has to be something that other people are going to be interested in hiking, or challenging themselves on to try to beat the fastest known time. So that's what that is, and there's 3 different styles. So as you mentioned in your intro, I just said an unsupported FKT. So there's 3 categories of FKTs. The first is supported. That is where you have a crew supporting the athlete or the participant in the FKT, and they crew them, just like kind of there's during a long distance marathon or something, there's aid stations. The crew will aid them, give them food, set up camp for them, give them dry gear, anything they may need along the trail. So they're fully supported, and they're often ultra runners or long distance runners that just wear a vest with a water bottle on it. And then there's the self-supported. Self-supported style is where you can support yourself with food stashes. You could stash food along the trail, things you think you might need, as you're out on the trail. You can even stop at gas stations, grocery stores. You can pick things up along the trail like that to support yourself, but you still can't take aid from anybody. Now, an unsupported, which is what I mostly do, is where there is no outside support whatsoever. So you are not allowed to accept water or food or snacks or any kind of assistance or gear from anybody.
Oh, wow.
What you start with in your backpack is what you have to finish the trail with. And to me, that is the purest style. It's the most difficult style. And not very many people tackle the unsupported ones on long distance trails because at some point there's going to be a time where you can't get to the end of the trail because you can't carry enough food on you. So the distance I just did is really pushing the limits of about the longest ones out there. I know a couple people have done, close to 500 miles that way, but it's very, very difficult. And you a lot of time you're starving yourself because you just can't carry enough calories in one backpack to sustain yourself for 500 miles.
Right. So, yeah, the distance you did was 343 miles. Sheltowee Trace, is that how you say it?
Yeah, pretty close. Sheltowee. I think there's a couple different pronunciations, but
okay.
Sheltowee Trace. And that is, I should have brushed up on the history on that trail, but I think it was established in the early 80s, if I'm not mistaken, and it's slowly grown over time. Originally, it was maybe 208 miles or something like that, and it keeps getting trail extensions. For quite a while, it was low 300s, and now it was 333 a couple years ago, now 343, and they're actually in the process of adding another 10-mile stretch that's going to be, it was supposed to be completed this year, but COVID kind of put a halt to that. It will be 353 miles probably this next spring. So they keep adding on to it, and that makes it more difficult too as well, because any participant that comes to try to maybe beat my time, and after the trail extensions have been added, they're going to have to add on those miles. That's one downside to the FKT site. There's not a way for them to keep track of all the trail extensions.
Right.
You just have to add those extra miles on and hope you can beat the last person that did it. So.
Right. So you completed that in 7 days, 16 hours, and 46 minutes, which is phenomenal. Before we talk about that time, where is this trail located at?
It is mostly in Kentucky.
Okay.
It starts just north of Moorhead State University. There's a city called Moorhead, Kentucky. It's only 20, 30 minutes from the Ohio River.
Okay.
So it travels through Daniel Boone National Forest, crosses into the Tennessee border into Big South Fork National Recreation, River and Recreation area, and there's about 53 miles or so in the state of Tennessee in Big South Fork.
Oh, wow.
And it ends at a place called Burnt Mill Bridge Trailhead. And then the 10-mile extension will take it into Rugby. Some people are familiar with Rugby. It's a real historic town in Tennessee.
Oh, wow. So you went through what, 3 states then?
Just two. Just
two?
Kentucky and Tennessee. So.
My goodness.
And had to average approximately 50. I was shooting for 50 miles a day. Ended up around 46.
Okay.
Due to some issues along the way.
So how do you keep track of your mileage? Do you have like a phone on you, like a watch, or how do you keep track of that?
I used 3 forms of verification for this FKT.
Okay.
You got to at least turn one form in, and if one of them fails, you're in trouble if you don't have a second one. So this is a Corus Apex watch. It has GPS. You can load routes on there, and it does a lot of things. So that's one form of verification. Then it'll send the information to Strava. A lot of athletes use Strava. A lot of runners know what Strava is. So Strava was one form. On my iPhone 8, I used an app called Gaia. It's a navigational app for a lot of hikers, runners, and backpackers. And then on my backpack, I used a little device, probably about a third of the size of my cell phone, called a Garmin Inreach. A lot of people know the Garmin name, Garmin Inreach Mini. And it's just a satellite tracking device.
Oh, cool. So what's preparation like to get ready for this?
Well, for this one in particular, I put over 1,000 miles in, starting in mid-June. And that was difficult for me because that's our busy farming time. So many days were spent after farming going out and doing my walks. And by the way, this is my buddy, the Colonel.
The Colonel.
His name's Anthony, but his nickname's the Colonel, a good friend of mine.
I'm Anthony, actually, yes.
And he called it my second job. So we would talk a lot of times on a Marco Polo app back and forth while I was out hiking, just to help me pass the time and kind of bug him. And he would say, "Oh, I see you clocked into your second job today," and a lot of times I'd be out at my ear nature preserve, trying to be on a trail because road walking does not prepare you for what a trail's like. So I try to get on a trail. Sometimes I would just hike in my fields, in the hills.
Okay.
But I put about 1,000 miles in, and really started getting serious about it in July because I knew I was coming down to the final 3 months and needed to have my body prepared. And what that is equates to is about 8 to 10 miles a day. That was usually my average. And then once a week, I'd try to put in a 25 to 30 mile day just to get a little closer to replicating what I was actually going to be doing on trail when I was hoping to do 50 a day. And, if you don't do that, you're going to feel the pain in your knees and your ankles and your feet and hips. I mean, just everywhere. So that it actually was the right amount. I feel like I was well prepared. I didn't have a lot of pain issues in my legs except my feet. And I think that was due to the heaviness of my backpack. Now, I consider myself an ultra-light backpacker. Those are people that carry minimalistic, minimal amounts of gear.
Yeah.
But with an unsupported attempt, I had to carry food provisions for 7 days.
Yeah.
And that equaled almost 20 pounds. So that was a majority of my weight. And so all in with water and gear and food, I was almost at 40 pounds. And I normally backpack at 15 pounds. So this was a lot of weight. And it took a toll on my feet. Even though I had hiked all those miles in preparation, my feet were hurting pretty bad about the third day in. So Advil or ibuprofen would help a little bit. Sometimes I just had to push through the pain because I didn't want to overdose, take too much Advil. I'd try to stay to the two tablets at a time, maybe 3 or 4 times a day, and just try to cut it out, stop at that, and deal with the pain. And so it was rough at times.
So Anthony, how did you meet Jason? How did you guys become friends?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I guess it's been several years ago. I originally met him. His cousin is a mutual friend of ours, and we just started hanging out, and we do a lot of kayaking together.
Yeah.
So that's how we started hanging out originally, I guess. And then somehow I got roped into helping him on these training hikes that he did. And then when I say helping him, it was just basically he'd walk away from Bellefontaine and I would bring him home.
A couple in particular that I remember that were memorable was walking the Simon Kenton Trail down to Buck Creek. Just about made it to Buck Creek. That was the one long training hike. And then another in particular one I picked back up, or maybe it was the Yellow Springs. It was almost the Yellow Springs. Picked back up and jumped on the Little Miami Scenic Trail, took it all the way down to Cedar Creek, which was about 35 miles. So that was a good training hike. And he would pick me up down there, and we would go to the state park, make a fire, cook some dinner, and then he'd run me home. So he got a little enjoyment out of it, too.
Yeah, it was a nice, relaxing evening for me.
Yeah.
He was obviously tired and worn out, but I had a good time.
So how do you help Jason prepare, Anthony, when he's getting ready for a big hike?
There's nothing much that I have to do. I did go down with him to Tennessee basically just to bring his truck home when he started hiking south from Moorhead. So there was really minimal stuff that I had to do.
He did more than that. He was my videographer. Now,
I did videos some for him for his YouTube channel. Yeah.
So we had both my cameras that I have out here today. One was for me and one was for him. And he would, he wasn't able to be on the trail and allow for me to be able to see him.
Right.
That would break the rules of the unsupported. Now, on these other two types I told you, supported and self-supported, he could film all he wants. But he had to secretly film me. So after he dropped me off, he went home. He came back down a few days before I finished, and he snuck into a couple areas where he knew I'd be walking by and film me.
And that was pretty epic. I did enjoy myself doing that.
He had a full-on ghillie suit.
I had.
Oh, my goodness.
I bought a ghillie suit, and then, I'm parking at trailheads and parking lots, and, he's known my truck forever, so I couldn't even bring my own vehicle because he would have saw, hey, there's Anthony's truck. I bought a minivan several days before this happened, and I did not show it to anybody. And and I chose a minivan because I lived in it basically too. So instead of dealing with a tent for myself, I just put the seats down and I camped in the back of this minivan. And then of course he didn't know what it was or who it was, and he's been right by it and never thought nothing of it. So outside of the ghillie suit, and then I did hide a camera on a fence one day and hid while he walked by. So I'm not a very stealthy person, but I kind of a little proud of myself that
Yeah?
I was able to do that undetected.
Yeah, you did a good job.
That's pretty cool.
Looking forward to putting that footage together in my
Yeah.
YouTube videos.
Yeah, I was watching your, I think it was the latest one, the Trail Recon.
Yeah, part 1, I
Yep.
guess you'd say. Yeah, part 2's coming out tonight at 8 o'clock. So
Okay, so just
that's
after-
actually, we'll be on the trail for that one.
Just after Chalk Talk, and you can find Jason on YouTube. Just look up Jason Wish, and dude, you have almost 11,000 subscribers. How did you collect that many people to follow your YouTube
Well, people
channel?
like the Colonel.
There is some truth to that because a lot of my followers are kind of split up 3 ways: farming, kayaking, and backpacking. And people love the Colonel, man. When we go on backpacking trips or kayaking trips, he's always getting mentioned in the comments, so they like the Colonel. But I had a farming video go viral. About almost at 1.7 million views. So I got a lot of subscribers from that early on. It gave me a couple thousand there when I first started my channel. But I kind of got away from the farming videos just because I enjoy the backpacking and kayaking videos more.
Yeah.
They're more fun to put together and edit. The
Nice.
farming videos.
I do have a couple questions from an audience member, Bob. He question 1: do you ever break into a run while you're out on the trail?
On previous, one thing I didn't mention is that this was my 6th FKT.
Okay.
Now, all those previous 5 have all been beaten since. But my very first FKT I ever did was the Sheltowee Trace in 2019. But I did it self-supported. And I had a lot lighter backpack because I did some food stashes along the way on the trail. So I did run probably a quarter of it, a slow jog.
Yeah.
It's hard to run fast when you got 20, 30 pounds on your back. But
yeah,
you can, on the downhills and the flat areas, I would definitely do some running, but not on this one. I mean, I just tried to walk fast. Try to stay over 3 miles an hour. Now, just going around, walking around town or Blue Jacket Park, 3 miles an hour is not that fast. But when you've got hills and tough technical terrain and a 40-pound pack on your back, 3 mile an hour, it adds up. It's hard to stay consistent with that for 18 hours. That's how long I had to be on trail.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't, I could elaborate a lot on that. I'll just mention it briefly. I had to be on trail for 18 hours a day to get the mileage I wanted. That gave me 6 hours off trail for camping, or setting up and tearing down camp, cooking food, sleeping. So, organizing food for the next day so it's easily accessible out of my backpack. So all those little things during that 6 hour off trail period take up some time.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to get 4 hours of sleep every night.
Oh, wow.
So it has a cumulative effect. By day 4, you feel like a walking zombie. You're dealing with pain issues. You're exhausted. I had some stomach distress on day 2. I almost threw in the towel. I mean, I almost quit. I only made 38 miles that day, and I thought the record was out of reach. And I didn't know if I'd even be able to finish, and I even told Colonel that he might have to come down and get me early. But it gradually went away, and I was able to continue pushing on. I kind of got a second wind and was able to reach my goals, basically.
Well, I'm glad that you fought through that because, I mean, again, 343 miles in 7 days, 16 hours, and 46 minutes is phenomenal. Another question from Bob. Do you encounter other athletes trying to do the same thing, like wanting to go out there on the trail?
Yeah. I don't know if I've bumped into any in person while I'm on trail other than just regular day hikers or overnight backpackers. But I have a pretty good following on Facebook and YouTube of other FKT people that do these often. And I know outside the backpacking community, FKTs are like, what's that? No one knows what it is. But within the backpacking community, most people know what an FKT is. And there's a lot of people that, we cheer each other on.
Yeah.
We bounce ideas off each other. And I got a lot of help from a couple individuals who do FKTs similar to the ones I was doing. We're good friends, and they help me with food preparation, getting the right calories, picking the right foods that are high calorie per ounce foods, and best ways to train, best ways to taper down. Those of you who aren't familiar with the word taper down, it's a tapering off period kind of after you've done all your hard training, so you don't go in to your FKT exhausted. So all runners, marathon runners, do a lot of tapering off, have a tapering off period to rest up slightly, back off on the mileage, and prepare for that big event day.
So you mentioned that you did your first hike back in 2019, and you said this was your 6th, and this is in the span of 2 years. So how did you manage to from the first one to this one, just getting better each one?
All the ones in between were short ones.
Okay.
There was one was 21 miles, and it was actually the trail that I did my very first backpacking trip on. And there's actually a marathon held there every year. So
Okay.
It didn't have an FKT, so I actually established one there. And then I found one in Indiana. It was 26. I beat the guy there by like a half hour. And then I did the most notable one in my FKT career before this Sheltowee Trace was the Susquehannock Trail. It's an 86-mile circuit. It's a loop out in Pennsylvania in the mountains. And it was brutal. I did that one. That was one. The record was 27 hours supported. He had a support team, and I wanted to beat him going unsupported. But I just had, for one night, you only need one small day pack with some snacks.
Right.
And I walked and jogged the entire night through. So at hour 12, I was at mile 44. At hour 24, I was at mile 70. And I started getting a little queasy and wondering if I was going to be able to finish, but I pulled through and finished in 31 hours.
Oh, wow.
But I said unsupported.
Yeah.
It was the first one that had ever been done there, but I was hoping to beat the supported guy, and Colonel was there for that one.
And, well, what was the elevation on that trail again? It was like
15,000
crazy.
feet of gain.
Oh,
Not
my
change,
goodness.
30,000 of change, but
Yeah.
15,000 feet up of going up throughout that 85 miles. It was pretty brutal.
How'd your legs feel after that one?
About like my stomach. it was hurting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not as bad as this one. The Sheltowee Trace really beat me up. And I'm still recovering. We're 2.5 weeks out from my attempt, and I'm still recovering. I lost 12 pounds.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm already a skinny fella, but I'm extra skinny now.
He lost 12 pounds eating 5,600 calories a day.
5,300 is what I took.
5,300?
I wasn't able to eat all that every day because of my stomach stress I had. I probably averaged about high fours, 4,800 calories a day.
That's nuts.
But,
Is there another one coming up? But at least within next year, because we're close to the end of 2021.
I knew that question was coming. When I'm in the middle of these things, I always ask myself, why in the world am I doing this? And if you watch my YouTube videos in the next week when I'm on like part 4, 5, or 6, I'm on camera talking about this. Why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this horrific pain? And then after that, I make a statement about how I'm never going to do one of these again. And I say that every time. And the only thing I can relate it to is a woman giving birth.
Okay.
They go through that horrible pain of giving birth, but they have another baby again. I know that's a stupid analogy, but that's the best way I can describe it. I always, after I heal and I forget all about the pain a little bit, I start training again, and all of a sudden I'm starting to plan my next one. So there's on the Sheltowee Trace, I missed the all-time overall fastest time by 5 hours.
Okay.
And but mile for mile, I beat it because there was a trail extension, a 20-mile trail extension since that supported guy ran it.
Yeah.
So I actually did beat him mile per mile, but the FKT site looks like I've missed the overall fastest by 5 hours because I did 343 instead of 323. So there's a little part of me that still wants to go back and try a self-supported and put out multiple food stashes so I can just carry a 10-pound backpack with my sleeping bag and a pad and some snacks and just run and fast walk, because I think I could break 7 days. I'm pretty confident. So I don't know. I guess to answer your question, there is a slight possibility next October I might go after it again.
All right. Jason, it was great to talk to you. Great to learn more about you and learn about this backpacking experience. If there's anybody out there who's maybe curious about getting into this, what's a good place that they can start or look more up?
I would say if you just Google FKT, and there's all kinds of sites that will come up. REI's website has a great explanation about all the different how FKT styles work. Runner's World or something like that. And then there's the FKT website itself.
Okay.
So that's probably the best way to learn more about FKTs.
All right, Jason, Anthony, appreciate your guys' time today, and thanks for coming out.
Yep, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, Jason Wish and Anthony here on Chalk Talk. We'll take a quick pause, talk some Bellefontaine girls basketball with our head coach, Megan Ashcraft, here on Chalk Talk, live at peakofohiotv.com and at Ron's Pizza.
Well, Jason just finished Chalk Talk, and he is inside Ron's Pizza, hobnobbing. Popular fella. Oh, and here he comes, folks. He's emerging.
Hey, we survived! Live radio broadcast.
There it is, the first live radio broadcast.
In the books.
All right, time to call.
Before we turn that off, thanks for joining in and helping me with this, Colonel.
Oh, anytime.
I mean, I know you didn't get a chance to say a lot, and
Well,
I wanted to say so much more. But,
I'm an unsung hero.
That's right. Did a good job, buddy.
Thank you.